You know how there's some words we use all the time and we just kind of assume we know what they mean? But when you dig in, you find out the original meaning was something way more powerful, way more radical. Well, today, we're going to look at one of those words, king.
Okay, so let's try a little experiment. When you hear that word king, what's the first image that pops into your head? Come on, be honest. Is it a massive throne? A heavy gold crown? A castle? Armies? Raw power? Right? Just kind of hold that picture in your mind for a second. Because the whole story of Christmas is about a massive collision between that image and a totally different reality.
And boom, right here, you see the clash. It's really a tale of two kings. On one side, you have everything we associate with worldly rulers. The palaces, the power, the authority. But then you look at this newborn king. What's he surrounded by? A feeding trough for animals, a bunch of shepherds, and this overwhelming sense of humility and service. It's about two completely different kinds of kingdoms, and honestly, understanding that difference changes everything.
Now, to really wrap our heads around this, we have to understand something huge. This event wasn't some random thing that just happened. The pastor's research for the sermon was super clear that this was the fulfillment of this deep, ancient hope that had been brewing for centuries.
Think about it. For hundreds and hundreds of years, through all sorts of crazy times, war, being kicked out of their own land, living under foreign rule, the people of Israel were holding on to this one specific promise. It was this thread of hope woven all through their sacred writings, the promise that a true king was coming to set things right. And check this out. This quote is from the prophet Isaiah, and he's writing about 700 years before Jesus was even born. And just listen to the words, "A child is born, but in the same breath, the government will be on his shoulders." It's this incredible mix, right? The vulnerability of a baby, but the absolute authority of a ruler. This was never just a spiritual idea. It was a prophecy about real leadership. And this is where it gets really mind-bending for the time. In a world where every king built his throne on war and conquest, this promised king gets a totally different title, Prince of Peace. The hope wasn't for another warlord. The hope was for a ruler whose reign would actually bring an end to conflict, not by crushing enemies, but through a completely different kind of power.
All right, so the long-awaited king finally shows up, the moment everyone's been waiting for. So who gets the big announcement? The VIPs? The insiders? The religious elite? Nope. The answer just shatters every single expectation about power and importance.
And something that's really important to know, which the pastor pointed out, is that it's not like everyone was on the same page about what this Messiah would look like. There was a whole range of hopes. I mean, you had people living under brutal Roman rule who were desperate for a warrior king to come and lead a rebellion. But then you had others who were hoping for a more spiritual, priest-like king to restore their connection to God. Nobody knew for sure what to expect. And then he's here, and the birth announcement goes out to two of the most fascinatingly different groups you could imagine. Not to the powerful or the politically connected, but to the local and lowly, the shepherds, and the foreign and wise, these scholars from a faraway land. Right from the start, this tells you something profound about what kind of kingdom this is going to be.
Let's just stop on the shepherds for a second. In that culture, these guys were on the absolute margins of society. They were seen as dirty, unreliable. They couldn't even testify in court. And these are the guys who get the angelic announcement. The good news of this king's arrival comes first to the outsiders, the people society had completely overlooked. And then, at the same time, you have the Magi. These guys were the exact opposite. They were probably Persian astronomers, the leading scientists and scholars of their day. They weren't Jewish. They were total foreigners. But by studying the stars, they knew a king of cosmic importance had been born. So from moment one, this kingship is for everyone, the locals and the foreigners, the uneducated and the intellectual. And their gifts? Man, they weren't just grabbing random expensive stuff. Each gift was like a declaration. Gold. Okay, that's obvious. It's a gift for a king. Frankincense was this super valuable incense burned in the temple during worship. That's a gift for someone who is divine, for God. And then there's myrrh. This one is startling. It was a spice used for embalming the dead. It was a shockingly prophetic gift for someone who is born to suffer and die. In these three gifts, they basically nail his entire identity: king, God, and suffering savior.
But here's the thing. You can't just announce a new king has been born and expect the old king to be okay with it. A new king isn't just news.
For the powers that be, it's a direct threat, and the arrival of Jesus was no exception. And you see this clash of kingdoms play out perfectly right here. You have two totally opposite reactions to the same news. The Magi, who came looking for the king with humility, respond with awe and worship. But King Herod, the guy on the throne, responds with pure fear, with lies, and eventually with horrific violence. He sees a threat to his power, and he'll do anything to protect it. This is the kingdom of self-protection versus the kingdom of self-giving, right in your face.
So what in the world does all of this mean for us, right here, right now? This isn't just some ancient story to tell once a year. The sermon really drove this home. This whole thing is an invitation. It's an invitation to become an apprentice to this new kind of king.
See, following this upside-down king has nothing to do with climbing a ladder or getting more status for ourselves. It's a daily practice. It's about learning from his example and trying to actually live it out in our jobs, with our families, in our neighborhoods. It's about how we live moment by moment.
So what does that apprenticeship actually look like? Well, here are 3 key practices we can take away from this story. First, embrace humility. The king was born in a manger, so we can practice valuing service over status. Second, welcome the outsider. The news came first to the shepherds, which reminds us to intentionally move toward and extend grace to people on the margins. And third, seek peace. This king is the Prince of Peace, which means we're called to be agents of reconciliation in a world that is so full of conflict.
So really, this ancient story funnels down to a very personal, very present-day question. It's the same choice the shepherds had, the Magi had, and Herod had. The announcement has been made, a new kind of king has come. The invitation is open, and the only question left is how will you respond?
If you're wrestling with that question, or you just want to explore more about what it looks like to apprentice under Jesus in our messy, real lives, we'd love for you to continue the conversation. We're building out more content just like this over on our YouTube channel, so please check it out and join us there.
Thanks for listening.